What is going on, big ballers? It's the Birdman. I'm flying solo tonight, but Manny will be back with us next week. Now, this episode of Fantasy Fumble is not going to have the back and forth that you love, but I still got a little bit of advice for you that you can use going into week 12. But before we get into all that, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey there, my name is Manny James Gonzalez with PRB, and I'm a real estate agent here in Central Florida. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, military relocation pro, and big supporter of 2A and veterans' rights. My specialty is VA transactions. I'm also experienced in all parts of real estate.
I've been living in Florida for over 20 years, and I can tell you we still believe in freedom down here. One of the greatest job markets, excellent economy, and no state income tax. When it comes to an agent, you want one that's going to be honest, not afraid of a fight, and most importantly, willing to do the things that some agents aren't willing to do.
And what's that, Manny?
Shoot straight, Dan. If you're ever considering buying in Central Florida, you need somebody you can trust, and I got your six. I'm Manny James Gonzalez, find land for the free and home for the brave.
Welcome back, ballers. Now let's get into our news and notes. Not a lot in the news this week, but it looks like the Jets are ready to move on from Aaron Rodgers because they let go of general manager Joe Douglas this week. The New York Giants quarterback Daniel Jones is going to be replaced by Tommy DeVito in Week 12. Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, as we know, was placed on injured reserve on Monday. And the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Gabe Davis was also placed on injured reserve on Tuesday. And the Carolina Panthers running back Jonathan Brooks is expected to make his debut in Week 12. Now, there's a few injuries we got to cover. Luckily this week, it's not as severe as past weeks. The apocalypse is starting to settle down. The Tennessee Titans running back Tajay Spears did not practice due to a concussion. Chicago Bears running back DeAndre Swift out with a groin injury. And Las Vegas running backs Zamir White and Alexander Madison also did not practice on Wednesday. Moving on to wide receivers. The Eagles wide receiver Devonta Smith is banged up. He's hoping to play this week, but he did not practice. Titans wide receiver Calvin Ridley also was out with an illness, but is expected to play in Week 12. And last but not least, we got the tight ends. Seattle Seahawks, Noah Fant, still out with that groin injury. And Dallas Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson, he's dealing with a concussion and will most likely be out Week 12 against the Commanders. And everything looks good at quarterback. There's no injuries that you need to worry about for your starters. Now let's get into our hot matchups. One hot matchup and one honorable mention for you today. I'm going to kick things off with the Eagles versus the Rams. The Rams struggled at the start of the season, but the offense is completely healthy and the defense has stepped up too. The same goes for the Eagles. They struggled a little bit at the start of the season, but really stepped up over the last month and are now 8-2. While the defense has been good on both teams over the last few weeks, the offense will be difficult to stop for both teams as well. The Eagles have been leaning on Saquon Barkley and need to get A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith more involved. And a matchup like this should create a perfect environment for both of them to boom because the Rams aren't as good against the pass as they are against the run. I see this as a bounce-back week for both Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. And Dallas Goedert has looked good over the last couple weeks, and he could have a nice game too. And of course, Jalen Hurts is a must-start every week. Now the Rams, they were leaning on Kyren Williams over the first half of the season, but with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back to full health, Stafford has been peppering them with targets every game over the last 4 weeks, aside from the one game when Puka was ejected. While Kyren has taken a back seat to the receivers, he's still delivering double-digit fantasy points and is a must-start every week. Stafford has been very good over the last month, and I would play him if your starting quarterback is on a bye or if you just think he's a better play than your starter this week. Now, my honorable mention is the 49ers versus the Packers. Again, two teams that have a really tough defense, but high-powered offense that seems like it'll negate the defenses altogether. If the Niners don't win this game, they might not make the playoffs. They have to play better than they have in past weeks, and this matchup won't be easy, but it should be a close game, which can lead to a back and forth. The Packers' D was solid earlier this season, but not recently. The 49ers offense will have Kittle back, and McCaffrey should be 100% too. Not sure what to say about Debo. He's been up and down all season and hasn't had a big game since week 6. Jennings, on the other hand, has been great the last 2 weeks. He's had 11 targets in both games and seems to have great rapport with Purdy, who has been really good all season. Jordan Love should also be 100% coming into this game, and while the 49ers defense is good, they haven't been great. And with the entire Packers offense healthy, I don't see the Niners being able to stop them. Now, getting into my cold call this week, I got the Steelers again. The Steelers versus the Browns. Similar to the cold call I mentioned last week, another divisional matchup that no matter what the circumstances turns into a hard-nosed defensive battle. The Steelers' offense has looked better with Russell Wilson, but they didn't have one touchdown last week. They're 8-2, but all those games have been really close. I think we know what to expect from Najee at this point, which is a flex play that'll get you about 12 points. I would start Pickens because he's been awesome over the last month, but he still hasn't had a single touchdown. Hopefully that changes this weekend against a weak Cleveland secondary. Now, the Browns have been much better with Jameis Winston, but they have their hands full with the Steelers this week. And Cedric Tillman, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku have shown some bright spots for the Browns offense. But again, this is a difficult matchup. You're going to have to lower those expectations. They've been great over the last month. They've been getting peppered with targets, but you got to turn that volume down a little bit. And unfortunately, Nick Chubb hasn't made a difference at all since he's come back. So I think this is going to be a difficult game for the Browns. It's going to be another defensive battle, and I don't expect it to be a high-scoring game. Now it's time for my shit call of the week. I was very high on DeAndre Hopkins after his trade to Kansas City, but the last 2 weeks have been very disappointing. Last week, as a whole, for Kansas City was pretty disappointing. But it looks like DeAndre Hopkins may be following suit behind all the other flash-in-the-pan wide receivers we've seen on the Chiefs. I hope that is not the case, but I was very high on him a couple weeks ago, and it's quite possible he's going to be a bust. I still think he has time to turn it around, but if you watch my player profile on DeAndre Hopkins, I was very high on him, and the last 2 weeks have been total duds. Let's hope he rebounds. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. It was a quick episode. Again, we don't have the back and forth without Manny here, but he's going to come back, and you'll get a little bit more of that, and you'll get a couple more hot matchups and one more cold matchup. Until then, keep tuning into the player profiles or any other highlights that we throw up there. And I hate to ask. It feels so lame to ask. But like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, whatever the fuck you want to do. We appreciate it, and we will see you next week.